There is a quiet suffering many strong men endure, giving more than they should, accepting less than they deserve, all in the name of love. But when respect is lost, everything else unravels. In this video, we unveil the 10 rules you must never tolerate from any woman, not out of bitterness, out of dignity, wisdom, and eternal self-respect. Rule number 1 T. There is a power and beauty that cannot be denied. The eyes are drawn to symmetry, to softness, to the allure that nature itself has designed to attract. And yet, just as a flame draws the moth to its death, so too does charm lead the undisciplined mind into ruin. A woman's charm, her words, her movements, her scent, may inspire desire, even all. To confuse this enchantment with virtue is to place illusion above truth. The wise man knows that external allure is neither proof of goodness nor evidence of loyalty. He does not allow smiles to conceal sharp tongues, nor tender gestures to cover the seeds of manipulation. Charm, when left untested, blinds a man to what lies beneath the surface. She who flatters may seek favor, not companionship. She who seduces may hunger for control, not connection. The wise man must inspect character, not cosmetics. Values, not velvet. It is not bitterness that guides him. It is clarity. He understands that to allow beauty to override reason is to invite chaos behind a painted mask. The man who is ruled by his senses becomes a subject of their betrayal. He must ask, does this charm uplift my spirit or compromise my path? Rule number 2 There are wounds that bleed, and there are wounds that stain the soul without leaving a mark on the flesh. Disrespect is one of them. A single word, laced with contempt, can fracture a man's inner harmony more than a sword ever could. It begins subtly. A mocking tone, an eye roll, a dismissive gesture, and yet, each small act tolerated becomes a permission granted. Over time, what once seemed minor turns into a pattern, and what was once a crack becomes a canyon. A man who endures disrespect under the guise of love is not humble. He is decaying in silence. He loses the firmness of his voice, the clarity of his thoughts, and eventually, the worth he once carried with pride. To accept disrespect in word or deed is to surrender your throne. No relationship, no matter how intimate, grants the right to degrade. Love does not grant immunity to cruelty. A woman who speaks with scorn or acts with disregard has already declared that your dignity is expendable. And when you justify or excuse such conduct, you confirm her declaration. You become complicit in your own erosion. Disrespect tolerated once is a lesson in how to treat you again. Rule number 3 There are forces more subtle than violence, and among them, emotional manipulation is the most insidious. It does not strike with fists, but with feelings, bending reality through tears, silence, guilt, and sudden affection. A man who lacks awareness will confuse these tactics for passion, believing that intensity is proof of sincerity. But the wise man sees the pattern. He understands that not all emotion is authentic, and not all affection is pure. Some use sorrow not to seek healing, but to control. Some use anger not to defend themselves, but to weaken you. The manipulator learns your compassion and uses it against you, turning your strengths into shackles. It often begins with small episodes, a dramatic reaction to a minor issue, a guilt-laden sigh when you disagree, a withdrawal of warmth to punish you for holding your ground. These are not signs of deep feeling. They are instruments of control. They twist your conscience until you feel responsible for someone else's instability. And once you accept the role of caretaker for emotions that are weaponized against you, you have surrendered your peace. The one who loves you will not seek to trap you through pity, nor rule over you through fear of their own breakdown. Compassion must never become obedience to dysfunction. Rule number 4 There are some who do not seek peace, only the thrill of disruption. Their joy is not in harmony, but in the storm itself. These are the ones who thrive in confusion, who stir conflict not to resolve it, to feel alive through it. A man must be vigilant in recognizing such a soul, for her chaos will not remain her own. She will pull him into it, piece by piece, until his world mirrors her unrest. What begins as a minor quarrel becomes a habit of confrontation. Moments of calm are seen not as blessings, as empty spaces to be filled with provocation. She may cloak her instability as passion. She may say that her volatility is a sign of depth or intensity, and that without fire, there is no love. But this is a lie spoken by those who fear stillness, because stillness reveals their emptiness. A woman who cannot be at peace with herself will never allow peace in the life of another. Her turmoil will invade your thoughts, your time, and your purpose. You will find yourself solving problems you did not create, apologizing for reactions you never caused, and sacrificing your calm in service of her storms. A man must not confuse emotional noise for substance. Rule number 5: flattery is the softest form of deception. It arrives dressed as praise. Its aim is not to honor you. It is to mold you. A woman who flatters without substance may not see your true nature, but only the parts she wishes to amplify for her own gain. She praises your strength so that you never show vulnerability. She calls you perfect so that you fear imperfection. With every excessive compliment, she feeds not your soul, but your vanity, until your self-worth is no longer rooted in truth but in her approval. This makes you weak, dependent on her words rather than your own discipline. There is a difference between genuine admiration and strategic flattery. One sees your effort and honors it. The other identifies your ego and inflates it, knowing that an inflated man is easier to control. When a woman gives you too much too quickly, when her praise is louder than her understanding, question what it is she seeks to shape in you. The wise man remains grounded, no matter how high the words of others try to lift him. He does not need to be called a king to feel his crown. He would rather be unseen in truth than celebrated in illusion. When praise becomes a tool to seduce or manipulate, it is no longer a gift. It is bait. Rule number 6: a man's purpose is his compass. It is the silent force that orders his days, disciplines his thoughts, and gives weight to his presence. Without it, he is easily swayed by pleasure, weakened by comfort, and enslaved by the approval of others. Affection, while noble in its truest form, becomes dangerous when it demands the sacrifice of this inner calling. There are those who will claim to love you, yet slowly pull you away from your path. They do not do this always with malice. Often, it is born of fear. They fear the part of you that is unshakable, the part that cannot be tamed, and so they seek to soften it in the name of love. She may ask you to spend less time building, to compromise your goals for her feelings, to choose her over your discipline, and she will disguise this as intimacy. But in truth, it is erosion. When a man gives up his direction to maintain someone else's comfort, he loses both. He becomes a shadow of who he could be. Present, perhaps, but powerless. True affection does not ask you to turn from your mission. It walks beside it. Any love that demands you abandon what gives you strength is not love but a leash. The man who yields his purpose for warmth will one day find himself cold, with nothing left to build and no self left to return to. Rule number 7: possessiveness often comes cloaked in the language of affection. It speaks in phrases like, "I just care too much," or "I can't help but worry." But beneath these words lies a hunger not for connection, but for control. A woman who constantly needs to know your whereabouts, who grows anxious when you spend time alone, or who resents the moments you give to your purpose, rather than to her presence, is not expressing love. She is expressing fear. And when fear governs a relationship, freedom dies. Love, in its highest form, nurtures growth, not confinement. It does not seek to own you, to stand with you. A man who confuses possessiveness for passion begins to shrink. He starts censoring his thoughts, limiting his actions, and hiding parts of himself to maintain peace. He stops moving forward and starts orbiting her needs, her moods, her insecurities. What began as affection becomes surveillance. What felt like closeness becomes suffocation. You will be praised when you obey and punished when you reclaim your space. This is not the rhythm of love. It is the routine of captivity. And the longer a man accepts this disguised devotion, the more he forgets the shape of his own freedom. He begins to believe that to be loved is to be watched, measured, and restrained. Rule number 8: contempt is the quiet destroyer. It does not need to shout to be heard, nor strike to cause harm. It resides in subtle gestures, the smirk when you speak, the delayed response to your presence, the way your words are dismissed before they are understood. A woman who harbors contempt for a man has already ceased to see him as an equal. She may stay, but her heart has turned elsewhere, often to the illusion of superiority. Where once there was respect, there is now a quiet judgment, condescension that seeps into the silence between words and the glances exchanged across a room. A man who senses this shift and does nothing allows himself to be diminished slowly. He will start to doubt his worth, question his instincts, and internalize the coldness as failure. Contempt is not always loud, but it is always corrosive. It strips away intimacy and leaves only performance. The one who stays with a contemptuous partner will find himself negotiating for dignity. He will speak more gently, try harder, bend further, all in an effort to win back something that was lost the moment she decided he was no longer worthy of her reverence. A relationship poisoned by contempt becomes a theater where one acts and the other observes with disdain. Rule number 9Z. In a true union, there is harmony, not rivalry. The rise of one is not a threat to the other, but a shared triumph. Yet some enter a man's life not to build with him, but to challenge him, to prove themselves superior in subtle and constant ways. She may compare her accomplishments to yours, diminish your progress with indifference, or seek to outshine rather than uplift. This is not partnership, it is quiet war. And a man who does not see this clearly will find himself locked in a struggle for validation within the very space meant to restore him. The competitive spirit, when misplaced in intimacy, erodes trust. Instead of encouragement, you receive criticism disguised as motivation. Instead of joy for your success, you feel the cold shadow of resentment. Over time, you begin to silence your victories, fearing they will provoke insecurity rather than inspire pride. You find yourself walking cautiously in your own life, dimming your light so that hers may feel brighter. But when love turns into a scoreboard, both lose. The man forgets what it means to be championed by someone who truly believes in him. The woman forgets how to feel secure in someone else's strength without needing to challenge it. What could have been a union of forces becomes a competition of egos. Rule number 10. Truth is the bedrock of any lasting bond. Without it, trust crumbles and the foundation of respect erodes. Lies come in many forms: small fabrications to avoid conflict, omissions meant to protect feelings, or grand deceptions designed to manipulate. Yet, no matter the scale or intent, lies corrode the soul of a relationship. A man who tolerates falsehoods is building on sand, knowing that the tides of revelation will wash away all he has constructed. When deceit becomes a habit, the clarity of reality is lost. The man begins to doubt not only her words but his own perceptions. He is left navigating shadows and half-truths, unsure what is real and what is crafted for convenience. The cost of accepting lies is not only external, it is internal as well. It breeds suspicion where there could be peace, weakens resolve where there could be strength, and fosters isolation where there could be connection. A woman who cannot meet you with honesty denies you the chance to stand as equals. She forces you into a role of constant vigilance or blind trust, neither of which is sustainable. The wise man recognizes that no affection, no passion is worth the sacrifice of truth. He demands clarity, even when it is uncomfortable, because only in truth can love endure and grow. In the quiet moments of reflection, it becomes clear that the foundation of any meaningful connection rests on respect, truth, and unwavering purpose. To endure anything less is to accept a slow erosion of the self, a surrender to forces that seek not to elevate, but to diminish. The challenges within relationships are not merely tests of affection, but of character. To walk alongside another in genuine partnership demands vigilance, strength, and clarity of judgment. The path of true companionship honors freedom over control, sincerity over illusion, and growth over stagnation. When a man holds fast to these principles, he preserves not only his dignity, but the very essence of what it means to love without losing himself.